Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are, I'm Wolf, host tonight for this AMA session. With me, I have Zombie Grub. She is a professional caster, and she has been nice enough to come and answer some of our awesome questions. So, how are you doing tonight?
Doing really well. Just played a couple of rounds of Valorant with my friend, so feeling pretty hyped. And I always love talking about casting, so this is a really exciting thing for me to do.
Nice. Yeah, you normally do StarCraft casting, correct? And Valorant's fairly new to you, or have you been playing it a lot?
I've really been able to play it a whole lot. I guess I started playing it kind of frequently, like a month ago.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's been StarCraft 2 for 10-ish years, and not much else.
All right, so I do have to ask before we get into the casting questions, who's your favorite agent in Valorant?
I first was really I was attracted to Sky. I was like, she looks really awesome. So I started playing her first, but now I actually really like playing Phoenix. So.
Oh, okay, nice. Do you flash your teammates a lot? Because I can't play Phoenix.
I'm not so bad at that, but I am bad at sometimes misjudging the actual arc of the ball and just bouncing off the edge of the
Oh,
corner I was supposed to. So I blind myself a lot. It's a
okay.
problem.
I feel like that happens a lot when people first pick up Phoenix. They just blind teammates, they blind themselves. It's all right.
Yeah.
All right, so we before this happened, we kind of pulled the group. We have our commentating kind of like group here where we all get together and learn commentating together, which is fun. But we went through with the students and had them sign up and ask questions that they wanted answered. So we will start out with some of those. Only one of them wanted to not be anonymous, so most of these are anonymous questions.
Okay.
uh, but our first one is, what made you decide to pursue a casting career, and like how did you get started?
So it was a long time ago. StarCraft 2 had come out. I bought it because everyone played StarCraft 1, and I was like, why not? Wanted to get better at the game to beat my brothers, and did beat them. And it was like, wow, I learned so many things. I can continue learning. Found out about these guys called Korean players. Was really quite good at StarCraft. Was like, wow, I need to be as good at StarCraft as them. Started playing in like clan wars and joining clans to play StarCraft and be like a professional gamer in it. But then eventually I just started casting instead because it was a great way to make connections and get replays. So I was casting a lot for clan wars. One of the first things I did was I was with a friend who had made in StarCraft, and we were watching a cast, and we were like, we could do better than this guy. We didn't mean to be jerks, but it probably sounds like we're going to be jerks. So we just like hopped onto a stream that we, because everyone at that point had kind of had a XSplit at that time, I think it was. So we hopped onto a stream and just kind of had like a fun time. And the caster actually was really offended and really hated us. But the guy who produced the tournament actually was like, "You guys are so fun. Like, you should cast the tournament instead." So I figured, that was an okay thing to pursue. And then I just kept casting so many clan wars that I eventually kept casting more and more stuff. And realizing that I wouldn't really ever have a good chance of being a professional gamer, but I could maybe do casting. Did more and more community events, got slightly bigger, kind of had a breakout event, then got invited to cast in an offline studio in New York. And then just eventually found a casting partner for a long time. And we built up a kind of a company together of casting online StarCraft. And that just became one of those moments when I graduated college. I was like, well, I have three options. I could continue doing art because I was studying to be an artist. I could do StarCraft, or I could travel abroad to Korea and teach English because I'd also studied to do that. And I decided to kind of just work with this esports thing because it seemed really fun and interesting. So be damned to my future type situation and see where this goes.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people kind of get into that of, wanting to be a professional player, and then they're like, oh, well, there's other roles that I could do within esports. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Probably the more common one, I think. Just like I
Yeah.
want to get better at the game, and then casting's fun as well.
It's always fun when you have, like, when you know how to play the game and you have fun with it, than to go
Mhm.
into casting. Uh,
Yeah.
One of our students, Celeste, asks, how do you make the jump into getting bigger casting gigs?
Yeah, so that's it's kind of what you mean by bigger casting gigs. So much of casting is going to be getting the next bigger gig based off of the previous gig. So for me, it was like Clan Wars, and then it was applying to community broadcasts. So the big tournaments would have like 4 main streams and then a dozen community broadcasters, and then using that resume to do more community casting. And then eventually, you just make the right connections through that. So I made a connection with these guys, Axeltoss and Axlab, who worked up in New York for MLG. And they were like, hey, you're going to come to New York Comic Con. Why don't you stop by and help us cast? Because IEM New York was happening at Comic Con. And I was like, of course I will. Like, oh my God. And that didn't really like launch too fast after that, but one of the mainstay casters noticed me and was like, I thought you did an excellent job, hope to see more of her type situation. And then I was working with a company, so much of the online broadcast was called Base J TV, that I wasn't really looking to jump into the biggest gigs, the 7 casters up on the main stage broadcasting the main events. And it kind of just happened naturally, where I was doing more and more, and I was really respecting the community, and people were kind of starting to talk to each other on my behalf. Someone from DreamHack was like, why is this woman caster not doing more stuff? Like, I see her all the time. So eventually the guy in charge of WCS at the time, the organization for StarCraft, actually reached out, and that really had to do with timing, which is a very tricky part about being a commentator. At the time, the guy in charge was willing to kind of risk a 5th caster spot to a newbie. Like, I'd been casting for a long time, but so that year, my other friend Fear Dragon got his first gig, and then I got the gig afterwards. And I did a good enough job at that gig that they invited me to do BlizzCon the next month after. So yeah, it's a lot of luck, and it's all about connections. You'll probably hear that a lot. It's about who you know, not what you know, and that's definitely still true. But of course, the people who know you for what you know are going to be probably the ones who want you to know your stuff and who are going to actually have the influence to suggest you to other people.
I feel like that's the true for a lot of jobs where it's good to know people, get those connections, and
Yeah,
use those to
yeah.
get bigger and bigger gigs.
One of the things I honestly suggest for people to do is that if you want to start, getting up there in the casting world, is to reach out to casters who are, for a lack of a better term, above you, right? Like people who are doing some of the bigger gigs, and ask them if they would like to come on for any type of tournament that you're hosting or that you're doing. If you have the means to pay them, of course, do so. But a lot of them are just going to be nice to nice people. That gives you experience with a good co-caster. It's like facing someone who's better than you in a video game. You're going to learn a lot from it. It gives you experience with a caster who actually knows what they're doing, so you can flow better off of them. It gives you experience with someone who can then go, you know what? I worked with that chick once, and she was actually really easy to work with. So that's what I suggest people to do, as well as when there are conventions again. If you're going to go to a convention, don't be annoying, don't be obnoxious, but definitely be cool and talk to the people as if they are normal human beings. And if you do that, and you're also like, eventually they are like, oh, wait, that chick was really cool at that one thing. Oh, she does, pretty good casting. Oh, okay. And then marries together. So, being social is a big requirement, I guess.
So basically, don't fangirl when you see people that are famous.
I mean, try. Well, you can fangirl a little bit, right? But it's, I mean, like, there are some people who take this advice, and they're like, always be like reaching out and talking to people. And they'll take that overboard. They'll be like, the casters will go off to have their dinner after the event. And then they'll like jog up to them and be like, so where are we going, guys? And the casters are
Oh,
like,
okay.
who are you? Like, what's going on? What's happening? Like, don't do that, is what I'm saying. But if you can just be chill and kind of, in the same proximity, then just strike up a conversation about the video game. It's actually so easy. Like, that's the greatest thing about esports, is that when you're in a convention or a tournament, you can just look to the next person and be like, so that Valorant game, right? And they'll be like, yeah, that Valorant game. And then you have a conversation going with anyone.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Need to take that to heart. I'm not very social when I'm out in the world. All
Yeah.
right.
It's necessary, I think.
Yeah. So In your casting journey here, you've been casting for, I think you told me, approximately 8 years or so here.
Yeah.
What would you say, which event in this journey was maybe most impactful to shaping your experience as a caster?
Yeah, so I read that and I was really having a difficult time choosing. There's so many moments that I feel compounded on each other. Um, Obviously there was the being invited to New York was great, but that didn't really jumpstart very much. That was probably in like 2013, and I didn't get like a humongous gig until about 2017 actually. Um, but anyways, the first big gig I got was a French company took a chance on me because I had been so ingrained in the uh like lower levels of the scene. Um, and they were doing a thing called Nation Wars. So I actually knew some of the players that weren't doing like the best, right? But they were representing their country. That was really big. That was the first time that I cast with the big boys. I was nervous and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I didn't even prepare for this. I had no idea this was coming my way, and it was a beautiful experience. It really helped me a lot to learn that I want to do this. I want to be on the stage casting with people. And then the next one I would say is probably it's called WCS Montreal 2018. An event in Montreal, and I had been very dedicated to improving my cast, to improving my craft. I was known as being analytical. I had a difficult time branding myself, but that's kind of what people put me in. And I wanted to expand to actually be more of the host, the person who leads the broadcast and who has the ability to cause some hype. So I experimented in that tournament, basically. I worked with the crowd a lot more. I was like, how's Montreal doing? And, that type of cheesy stuff. And actually let my analytical co-caster do more of the analysis while I was trying to bridge the gaps. And I got a lot of good reception from it. I managed to do the finals of that tournament, and it was one of the best finals ever, and it was all great and whatever. So I think that was really important in shaping my experience, because that was the first time that I actually thought I could be more than just the person who knows the game to a certain level, which has actually been something that I've struggled with for a long time. But I'll save as to why, because I think it comes up in some future questions.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so the next question is, what is your favorite and least favorite part of being a caster?
Okay, so the favorite part is absolutely storytelling. I always wanted to be a storyteller. I was into forum roleplay when I was younger. I loved, manga and comics and reading, and I wanted to be a storyboard artist. I wanted to create comics, that type of young lass. And I found that storytelling, as with the human stories that we have in esports, is actually just one of the best ways that I can be a storyteller and be creative. And that's that, alongside with bringing everyone along for the journey, being the showman in front who gets to lead the crowd and be like, this is why it's so important. And this is what you guys are watching. And for them to react is very infectious with the crowd when we have one again. But even Twitch chat, pog champing at the right moments is fun too. The least favorite thing about being a caster is definitely the fact that you basically do become kind of a celebrity. Obviously not a very big one, but you kind of do. This means a lot of unnecessary feedback. This means a lot of just like out of nowhere feedback. This means that you could be reading something on a forum totally unrelated to anything about the casters. They could be talking about like how overpowered the new person in Valorant is, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they go, "Yeah, Zongo's a really bad caster, don't you think?" And you're just like, "The fuck, where'd that come from?" So that part really sucks. Just all the online shit you have to deal with.
Yeah. I saw it, just to derail us slightly. I saw that you had tweeted at some point that you guys are going to be playing D&D
Oh yeah,
or something. I love
yeah.
D&D. I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, we had done a Call of Cthulhu D&D actually like a year ago that I DM'd, which is so fun. And then we're doing the Tales of the Yawning Portal
Oh,
D&D
nice.
stuff now. So getting all the classics.
If you like RPGs, check that out. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Okay, back on topic. So what do you do when you have like a big event? What do you do typically to prepare yourself for it?
So Yeah, it's always a kind of a tricky one, because I'm coming from an experience of being so ingrained in the community for a long period of time that my research is going to be different from a person who is doing multiple games or is just emerging into a new game. So, once I do a bigger Valorant event, I could tell you how I studied for that. But for me, my study basically is just for like a month leading up to a big event. I do take notes. I realize that I like taking notes and making them pretty. The truth is that 90% of the note taking you're going to do is not going to be something that actually gets brought up in the cast, nor do you really want to bring it up. The purpose of note taking and studying the VODs and studying builds and strategies and players is that you can take all of this data that's just overflowing at a certain point and condense it concisely because that's the job of a commentator. So, I have I don't know if there's equivalent in this in Valorant, but I have like a note that says the times that it takes to rush across a map in StarCraft. I don't actually want to be the person on the cast who says, well, Death Ore is 39 seconds long and 144 by 140 dimensions compared to Submarine, because that's just too much information, right? But what I can do with this information is say Death Ore is a very large map. You're not going to see a lot of rush strategies here. Compare something like Submarine, which will come down later down the road where you might see it, right? So it's a lot of note taking about 4 months up to the event. And then during the event, barely any. It's all about your chemistry with your co-casters, having a good time, bringing a good performance, and keeping yourself healthy enough to actually use your vocal cords and whatnot. And I think that just about does it. And then so much of the other stuff that I've done that I do is just built up over the constant, days that I'm in StarCraft. So there might be more necessary than what I have to do, but yeah, that's what I do usually.
So you're talking about, when you have a lot of advance notice that you're going to be doing this event. I think you said like you had a couple months normally for an event to.
Oh no. Oh no.
No? Okay. Maybe
I
I
said
misheard you then.
no, I said a month usually
A
to
month, okay.
study. But yeah, as far as being a caster goes, you're something that's last on the list. They're trying to get the money. They're trying to make sure the players are there. Sometimes I get notified about a week beforehand that I'm going to do an event. Ideally, though, it's about 5 to 6 weeks before an event happens, because that's usually also a good time for them to buy your plane tickets and whatnot. So a month is the max amount of time you really get to prepare.
Okay. That's a good amount of time though. It doesn't let you like over prepare too much.
Yeah, yeah. I usually try to like imbue it with my stream because I also day job is Twitch streamer.
Mhm.
So it just has it's a good way for me to study for what I'm really focusing on, which is the big event, but then also keep my stream alive.
Oh, nice. That's a good way to do it, honestly. Um, so when you were coming up as a caster and learning your craft here, like have you ever hit a wall while you were trying to improve? And do you have any tips on like how you got over it?
Yeah, so this is it kind of mixes with the other question about having the greatest issue I face as a caster. So I'm kind of hitting two birds with one stone, but yeah. So for me, I don't know if it was exactly a wall, but it was like a it's not a glass ceiling. That's not the right word. It looked like a wall to me, but actually it was something that I could have broken through. Like today, I didn't know the new agent's ults, and I thought it literally blocked you. So I just like rammed into it, and I was like, "Oh, it didn't block me at all." Shit, and then I died. It's exactly what it was like. But this wall was that I had always been under the impression that I would not be able to match my male co-commentators with hype and control of my voice, which is something that I think is actually a stigma in general, right? You're going to get into casting, you're going to have a lot of people that say, I just don't like her. And you're going to hear you say, why? And they're going to go, I don't know, her voice is grating. And you go, why? And they're like, I don't know, it's too high pitch. And you're just like, okay, so you don't like that I'm a woman. Like, I get it. So when I hit that moment where I was like, I really don't just want to be an analysis. I want to be able to bring the crowd to its feet and like, hype it up and just imbue the same energy that I feel like I have and can't communicate with my voice. So what I did is I went and sought a voiceover coach. There are coaches out there who They specifically teach voiceovers, voice acting. There's singing coaches as well, right? But there's actually also coaches that are just a voice coach. They are sometimes used for people who do like TED Talks, right? For business professionals who have trouble commanding a room type situation. And this guy really helped me not just with the mechanics of controlling your voice, but also with the confidence that I actually do have a good voice and I can use it correctly. And then I just started to experiment more and more with hype instead of always being subdued because I'm afraid to be the chick on the broadcast who goes, eh! I actually just kind of rammed headfirst into the experience and learned to control it by over exaggerating and under exaggerating, and finding a balancing point. So that's the only wall I can think of. And it's still one of the biggest issues that I face as a caster.
That actually pairs really well with our next question, which is, have you ever felt insecure about the sound of your voice? A lot of people, you'll record yourself and then you don't want to listen to it because you can't stand the sound of your own voice. So like,
Yeah.
how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so that's for those who don't know, that's actually just like everyone has that because like the little like bones in your ear or whatever, they like, vibrate and you hear more of a bassy voice when you hear yourself. When it's outside in the world, it becomes a bit higher. So everyone hates the sound of their own voice. What you're trying to do when you listen to your own voice is not just sit there and say like, "Oh my god, how does anyone ever listen to me? I'm so obnoxious." You're trying to make sure that you're communicating the feeling that you wanted to communicate. If you're like, wow, that was really sick, and you're actually saying, wow, that was really sick, obviously there's a problem there. But as far as being insecure about your general voice, that has to do with control. Everyone, like, this is what my voice coach taught me, and this is what voice acting coaches tell everyone. Everyone has a good voice, you just have to find it. So a lot of people can come in even with like a nasally voice, which is generally seen as being problematic. They can come in with, a very high pitched voice. They sound like they're honestly 10 years old. And as long as you can control it, and that is a technical thing, right? Keeping yourself upright, speaking from the gut, not from your throat, that type of stuff, opening your mouth wide when you speak to enunciate, those things are controllable. Your voice, timbre or whatever, that's not so controllable. So it's fine to be insecure about your voice, but the way you overcome it is just by studying and focusing on what you're trying to imply. What is your intent with your voice is more important in my opinion than what is your voice. So hopefully that helps.
That was a good answer. Um, so you've mentioned going to, these conventions, these big events, casting there. In the pandemic, we don't have those anymore. Like, how has casting changed since the pandemic has started? And, have you found the adjustment to be easy or hard as a professional?
It's pretty difficult. There's a lot of reasons why it's difficult. One of the biggest reasons is just the lack of motivation. There is something very, just awesome about the working really hard up until the event, having the peaceful yet sometimes stressful flights to the event, hanging with your friends and loving the game that you're casting, working with the crowd and feeling the energy of everyone who's excited to be there, and then doing it all in reverse until you get back home and just breathe and you're glad that's over with. I can just be lazy at home, and then in another month you're like, okay, I want to do that thing again. That's entirely missing now. Like, you cast something online and you just sit back where you have been sitting the entire time and go, okay, that was cool, and then you turn on your Twitch stream. So it's been very difficult. The motivation's not necessarily there. It's also, there's not necessarily technical problems, but there's, obviously like the delay between a co-commentator that's in Australia is actually pretty big in StarCraft because we have two from Australia. That can be difficult to work with. You can't communicate with your co-caster the way you would in an actual live event. A lot of time, if you watch casters cast, they'll be looking at each other and nodding along. They'll be pointing at something. Some even go to great lengths as to have signals with each other if they want to take it in. They'll do like this thing or whatever. You don't have that anymore. And then just to try and bring the same type of hype when you're not in a roaring stadium is very difficult to do. So I know Uber Shouts has actually pumped in crowd noises into his headset while he casts, which is something that people can try. And it's really difficult. Generally, I'm very used to online commentating. I did it for 5 years until I actually started doing the big gigs offline. But it's been difficult, and the experimenting that these tournament organizers are trying to do can sometimes be more annoying than helpful. Recently for IEM Katowice, which is literally last week, they had us do a virtual reality studio. They sent us all green screens and lights and new interfaces and a headset mic, and they implanted us into a studio in Poland. And that just increased the number of things that could go wrong.
Mhm.
It worked, but it's been not a hard adjustment. It's just been kind of like, I don't mean to be depressing here, but it's kind of a sad adjustment. Like no one really wants to be doing this. I mean, sometimes it might feel great not to travel 20 hours to something, but most of the time you're just like, oh, this is missing something.
That makes sense. It's hard for me to think of that just because like when I started casting, we were already in the pandemic. But I could
Yeah.
definitely see like, the amount of hype from the crowd would definitely hype up the casters as well and probably make it easier to bring that energy that you need.
Oh yeah, there's really nothing like it. Imagine actually if you tell a joke in front of 5 friends and the 5 friends laugh, like remember how amazing that feels? You're like, yeah, that landed. Like imagine doing it with an entire crowd and it's just because you introduced a player. It feels really
That's
good.
pretty cool. That would feel really good, yeah. All right, so our last question that we have from our students is, what would be, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but what would be one piece of advice that you would give to a caster who's just starting out?
Yeah, well, I think you do have to kind of stick with basics. You do have to know the game. You don't have to be a professional in the game. You do have to know the game. So make sure that you can call everything at a moment's notice. You can describe what's on screen at a moment's notice. That's the first step to being a commentator. And then I would say do things that you enjoy doing, and things kind of naturally unfold from there. If you are looking to improve lightning quick and you have an aspiration of being up on the big stage and you want to get there, you can do it. That's very admirable. But I think if that is the case, then you have to do the really tough work. It's like in a video game, I guess. If you're trying to get someone into a video game, you could just be like, "Oh, just have fun and hope it sticks." But if someone's like, "No, I want to be the best at this video game," you're like, "Okay, here's the stats, here's the sheets, here's the strategies. Go watch this guy." Yeah, if your arrow is directed towards commentating big events, we are talking about going back and watching your own VODs, making sure you're communicating correctly. We're talking about having the tough conversations with co-commentators. If someone's not working out, make sure to experiment with other people who might have a different flow, who might have a different outlook, maybe their analysis and your play-by-play or vice versa. And keep on being hungry, but again, not obnoxious. Reaching out when an opportunity presents itself. If someone's like, "Hey, we're looking for a commentator, please post your demo reel," or whatever like that, then yes, absolutely go for it. And the worst case scenario is not even a no a lot of the time. The worst case scenario is they don't even acknowledge you, which in some ways feels a lot better. So if that helps, there you go.
Nice. So, you brought up demo reels. How
Mhm.
important do you think it is to have like a professionally edited demo reel versus one that you put together yourself that even if you're not like that great with video editing?
I don't think it's very important at all, actually. A lot of people still don't have demo reels. Demo reels really become important when you want to start branching out to multiple games and multiple roles as well. Until you want to do that, you are almost always going to be coming up from word of mouth, and the chances that someone who contacts you and is like, "Hey, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you have to offer. Give me a demo reel," is pretty low. Um, that's only if you're trying to transition quickly into another video game, I would say. But it is, of course, still useful to have. And in that case, a non-edited, literally just video. I mean, sometimes even a timestamp on Twitch is fine enough for people. They just want to make sure that your voice overlays the game and is consistent. So it really doesn't have to be fancy, but it is always nicer to have it. Just choose a good analysis, a good hype moment, a good throw with your casters, back and forth with your casters, and then that'll probably cover it.
Cool. Yeah, I've just been seeing a lot of no, for some reason I've just been seeing a lot of people come up with demo reels lately.
Yeah, I think what's happening right now is that as esports has grown to be, even larger than it was 10 years ago, we have a lot more cases. Esports has always been a bunch of nerds who can talk somewhat well, getting to talk very well. Now it's kind of changing, so it's people with immediate aspirations in talking well and getting jobs as commentators, also being nerds. You know what I mean? So you see a lot more people trying to not skip steps, but present themselves as they are professional and already in the field. They call themselves experts on Valorant or experts on CSGO or something. And you look at them and you're like, how though? Like, you've only been passing for like a year. I don't get it. But branding is very helpful, right? So, it might seem kind of lame even sometimes when someone posts their first video of Valorant and they get a job because they have that video. It does suck, but that is the way that it works, I suppose. It's better to have it than not if that's what people are asking for. But generally, I think people are trying. I don't want to say try harding, but they're they're kind of skipping steps, in my opinion. Where if they just are like, here's a demo reel, here's a demo reel, here's a demo reel, and you're like, well, what are you actually doing? Like, what are you actually casting? What are you actually saying? Might still be in question.
Interesting. All right. At this point, I've been going for about 40 minutes. We'll open it up to any questions. So anybody in the Discord with us, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll call on you. If you're in Twitch and watching this, put them in the chat there. We have moderators that will be grabbing questions. We'll ask them for you. Yeah. No, thank you. That was really wonderful. In here.
Sure.
In the meantime, I actually do have one question for myself. I don't know that many casters outside of the Valorant sphere, but are there any casters in the industry that you like really look up to, and why would you choose them?
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Haven't asked that question in a long time. The first guy that I really looked up to was a guy named Artosis, who actually does cast Valorant now. You might have seen him and Tasteless cast the Korean section of esports. He's hardcore Brood War fan and hardcore StarCraft guy. But yeah, he was very knowledgeable, and his way of communicating was something that I felt I could mimic as well. Because he doesn't have the radio voice. In fact, he has a bit of a higher voice actually. But people never once said that he was, dumb or that he didn't know the game or that he was obnoxious, right? So I looked to him for a lot of inspiration. And then as I started to work with more people, honestly, Uber Shouts is one of the best. He has a variety to his pacing and his speech and his vocabulary that is pretty much unmatched. So every cast with him feels like it's energetic and alive and new. And then a lot of my friends that I work with on a daily basis. Maynard's also one of those guys, just has a plethora of ways to say things and has always just seemed so clever. And he's got that deep, bassy, gravelly, like metalhead voice because he was actually in a band. Can't replicate that, but I can try to replicate what he says. And I think that kind of covers it. I mean, there's so many inspirations that I've taken from like individual people that I can never say like one person is, because you also shouldn't be molding yourself after one person, right? But
That was going to be my
lots of
follow
little
up.
people.
Was like, should you try to emulate somebody that you like, or how important is it to find kind of like your own niche within
Yeah.
casting?
Yeah, that's actually, I have a friend who did love a commentator, and he would get a common critique that he sounded like that commentator. Because he wasn't that commentator, people always put it in a negative light, right? So you definitely don't want to be copying people. It's going to come off as inauthentic even when you don't mean to. So make sure to diversify and really experiment with what you think looks good, and then also what you sound like? Does it sound good when you do it? Yeah, I think the more people that you're watching from all variety of sports, also all the casting positions as well, are very important. If you want to be an analysis person, that's great, that's fine, but you should absolutely be making sure that you're watching people who are good at hype and play by play, and the hosts even, and how they throw and how they communicate with the audience, or even the interviewers, and the ways that they look on camera and whatnot. Like all of these things can be planted into whatever role you want to choose for yourself.
Nice. So we do have, this looks like it came from Twitch chat, from Fambly. What are the different components to a great broadcast from a caster?
What are the different components to a great broadcast, Matt Caster? I'm trying to think of what that could be. Put it another way. Like what makes a great broadcast?
Yeah,
Or
I think that's probably where they were going. Like what, yeah, the different like parts of a broadcast that make it great, I guess.
yeah, I think I guess I'll ask the answer the what makes a great broadcast. Hopefully that's somewhat correct. The what makes a great broadcast, and this is not just me talking. I've talked with a lot of other people. Is actually just the chemistry and synergy of the broadcast team. You start getting people who are after their own personal goals. They want to show the most analysis. They want to be the hypest person. It starts to collapse. It's a group effort. So everyone being chill, everyone having respect, and everyone being excited about the game. That's really what makes a great broadcast. It doesn't take a whole lot. And so when people get into commentating, it's kind of funny. These people will try and either be for casual, and that's totally fine, for funsies, whatever, or they'll try and be like, okay, I got to do this and then this and then this to be a professional commentator. They emulate what they see on the professional commentating desk, which, unless you're watching the best, unless you are the best, unless you're working with people that you've worked with for a long time, again, can come off as inauthentic and just stiff. A lot of the people who come up in the casting world are also just people who are able to have fun on an online broadcast, right? Because when people click on someone's cast, they can hear usually the same analysis as, or a better actually. Like a pro gamer will be watching the same game a lot of the time, right? What they come in for is actually just two people having a fun time and bantering and being uniquely them. That's also why Tastosis, again, moving over into Valorant, got no shit for being kind of bad at Valorant. They got nothing. Everyone loved them. Pro gamers were saying, like, who are these guys? They're so funny. They didn't actually know what they're talking about, right? But it didn't matter because people loved their flow and their energy. So it seems really cheesy. It seems really lame. It's pretty vague. But the great broadcasts are the ones where the entire crew is working together in a fun way. Those are the ones that are remembered. Those are the things that are clipped, right? So that's what it is.
That's fair. I mean, that's what I remember from watching any of the tournaments is that the casters have fun with it.
Yeah, it's honestly like you could look at it as like if you want to be a data person, like you could just look at it as like how many clips have happened. Like of course clips will happen because the game itself is exciting and you can't forget that it is about the game. But so many more clips that have stood the test of time, like in StarCraft, for instance, or clips from like 2012 where someone falls out of a chair and is laughing.
Oh no!
Like honestly, my most famous clip is with a friend who unfortunately passed away. But he just went over the data. He was like, the prize pool is this, the maps are this, that plus that equals that. Your thoughts, zombie grub. And I knew it was coming. I knew the way he was like kind of pacing it up, right? I knew he was setting up for a joke. So I played the fool and I was like, what? And he said, thank you very much, zombie grub. And that was like the most clipped thing ever on that channel for a long time. So it like those are the things that people are going to remember you for. It's very difficult to be remembered for like your great call and your great analysis. That sometimes also does happen.
Nice. So you've traveled quite a bit for testing before the whole pandemic thing. What was your favorite place that you got to visit?
Seoul, Korea is always my number one. Not surprising. StarCraft, Korea, still pretty much synonymous. But yeah, even if you're not like a StarCraft fan or an esports fan, Korea is just awesome. Everyone's very polite. Everyone's very friendly. They all respect each other and whatnot. You'll get looks because people like Koreans are like generally still surprised that people like them, which is always funny. Like if a white person like buys kimchi, like honestly, I've gotten the older woman in the store to be like, "Oh, you like kimchi?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I love it." And they're like, "Oh." They're so, just excited that you're glad to be there. And the culture there is so good. It's so good for hanging out with friends. So it is very fantastic for esports where everyone gets together for that one time out of the year, right? Because it's a city that never sleeps. You know that old saying? You can go to 7-Eleven, that is actually a store in Korea. It's open 24/7, like all of them are. Um, take their communal chairs and tables and set them up outside the 7-Eleven. Go in, buy hard liquor called soju for $1.50 a bottle, and beer and chips, and then go outside and drink in the street until it's 6 in the morning, which I have done quite a few times. So like it's just it's so cool. It's so cool, and of course it's like really interesting history and whatnot. But that's always been my favorite place to go because I also love the food. That's a big plus. And then outside of that, Montreal. I have so many friends who are Canadians, and it's such an easy place for the North American countries to get together. And I think it's a beautiful city. I'd see myself living there. Uh, and that's just it's a fun time. Some of the best after parties have happened in Montreal, so it's very fond memories.
Nice. I've never been to Seoul, but I've been to Montreal before for a Magic the Gathering tournament, actually. It was quite a fun
Oh.
city.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I honestly think everyone should visit Seoul, but a lot of people are like, especially I guess of the nerd culture, are all about like Tokyo and
Mhm.
Japan, right? Us weebs when we're growing up, definitely was one. But nah, it doesn't hold a candle to Seoul. So much better.
Good to know. Whenever we get to travel again, I'll keep that on my list then.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
imagine there's going to be a lot of really big Valorant tournaments in Korea, so pairing it up with a Valorant tournament would just it makes the experience so good.
well, okay, so that's a maybe a stupid question, but when you go overseas to like a foreign country, do you cast in English or do you have to know the language of the country?
You cast in English.
Okay.
So most countries that you go to are going to have still their main cast, their mainstream, be the English commentators. For Korea, in StarCraft, the English broadcast is aside from the Korean broadcast. So if we go to Germany, the Germans will be like, "Oh my god, it's Zombie Grub. Oh my god, it's Pig. Oh my god, it's Fear Dragon." Like whatever, and they will try to communicate with us in German. You go to Korea, it's like no one really knows us. We're just kind of the four white people off in the side casting in a booth. Um, but that's totally fine, obviously. But yeah, you don't have to learn the language or anything. Esports is definitely universal language is definitely English.
Probably good. I'm really bad at foreign languages.
They're a bit difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
I've undertaken some Korean studying, and I took French, when I was in school. But no way I'm going to cast in that language.
No, that would be definitely hard with all the hype you have to bring into it. Um,
Yeah.
looks like we have another Twitch question from Inoi. I'm probably butchering a name, but they ask when we are able to meet up again, what is the first thing you hope to do with all the other StarCraft 2 casters and community members?
Get drunk with them. It's honestly what the fun party is, man. No, it's such a good experience. Like usually at some events, it's not really it's like so at BlizzCon, like every place you go to is automatically just like a community thing. Like people are going to trickle in from all different esports and different fandoms and contaminate the hotel lobby. For other stuff, it is just like the 7, 8 casters going to their hotel and chilling there, and occasionally like one fan will be like, "Oh my god, we're in the same hotel as those guys." But when it happens, like wherever it is, however many people it is, only the people I know or people who are new but love StarCraft. Getting drunk with them is so easy. You bring up a conversation point that it starts with StarCraft, and then you got everyone nice and loose, and then you bring up, "Hey, who wants to play King's Cup?" And so many people are like, "I don't know. That sounds pretty hard." And then you just go, no, like if you want to drink water, that's totally fine. You can just play the mini games with us. And then suddenly you have 10 StarCraft 2 professionals, 5 fans, 2 production guys, all playing King's Cup in the hotel lobby, paying outrageous amounts for alcohol, but one person's like inevitably kind of richer than the other, so they all pay for everything. It's always a fun time.
It sounds like an interesting time.
It's some of the best memories for sure. I mean, I don't want to say that getting drunk's the only fun thing that happens, but
No, but it is when you do drink, it is easier to make friends. So
yeah, one of my favorite experiences. I don't know if we have time for this. I don't want to just make this zombie
no,
grub
go for
hour.
it. What's
But
your favorite experience?
one of my favorite experiences recently was I was in Katowice. So of course they last Katowice. We're there and we do half of the broadcast. So from Monday to Tuesday or something like that, to Wednesday or something. And it's fine. And everyone's like, what's this coronavirus thing? We don't know. And then Thursday, we're at rehearsals, and the guys are like, yep, it's fine. We've worked it out with the government. Thursday night, no, the convention can't happen. No one is allowed inside the convention. Everyone who's here, who has booked their hotels, who's already flown out, better luck next time. It's really quite terrible. It sucked. But we still had after parties because, of course, this was just the random. No one knew how severe it was. So even though places were shut down, like no one was really paying much attention. So hotel lobbies were still, full of people. And these two people from Finland, had come specifically to talk to one of the world's best StarCraft 2 players who is Finnish, she's Seoul. And they couldn't because the venue shut down. So they actually like tweeted and they were like, we're your biggest fans and like we'd love to meet you. And he did meet them. Later on, at the after party on Sunday, I am about 1 King's Cup round in on drinks, and we go to one of the hotel lobbies that has all the CSGO guys, because apparently that's where the party is. And yeah, the same 2 people are there, right? It's a husband and a wife. And I could tell, like, I don't think I'm conceited, but you can sometimes just tell when someone wants to talk to you, right? So I just saw the wife, and she was so like cute and like shy and whatnot, just kind of like doing like that little like hesitation thing. And her husband, luckily, was like very outgoing. He was like, "Hey, my wife's a big fan. She'd love to talk to you." And by 1 King's Cup round in, I think I had probably like 3 mixed drinks and 4 shots of vodka. Poland has great vodka, surprisingly. So I was like super loose. Like I've become such more of an outgoing person with esports, but especially when you've had a few drinks, it's very easy. And she comes up and she's just like shy as hell, and she's like, "Yeah, big fan. Like, you can take a picture." And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" I just like did like, and then we started talking about like crime podcasts, because I had recently gotten into crime podcasts, and she was like, "Oh, I love that crime podcast." And then she actually like told me at the event, she was like, "This is actually so much better than I thought it would ever be. Like, thank you so much." And I was like, "Whatever, man. This is life. It's amazing, isn't it?" And then, COVID hit. So, but that was just one of those experiences where I felt like I was like actually making someone's day, which is really hard to forget. But even if you're casting to only like 10 or 15 people or even lower, like there are actually some people out there who just enjoy you so much that you going live brings them some type of peace or enjoyment. And that's also an amazing thing about being not just a commentator, right? But being someone on the interwebs, if you will, whatever, is that you can make someone's day like that. But it's so cool. And I definitely would never have been so outgoing and talked so much if it wasn't for esports, because it's so much easier to talk in front of a crowd, in front of people, when there's a mutual understanding there that you both like this thing. It makes it so much easier.
That makes me feel really better because I don't do well in front of crowds. But hearing you say that maybe we'll do this.
Yeah. I wondered if anyone was going to ask that. You had mentioned that a lot of people are shy in this Discord, and you'd be surprised at how many people started off this way. Artosis, again, one of the greatest commentators to ever live, started the commentary chain for esports back in 2005, something like that. He was not a public speaker, but he enjoyed talking about nerd stuff, and he just started doing it in front of a crowd. So many people started off being shy. I was the kid who never talked to anyone and just made my mom talk to everyone. I had just a gap in communicating with people, despite the rest of my family being very outgoing people. And just by talking about a game, initially to a small amount of people, then to a lot more, it just became so much easier. Like if I ever get nerves, which I don't really, but if I ever do, it just goes away instantly when you get on the mic and you start talking about the game, stuff that you know. So if you're shy, if you think like I could never cast with 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people, you're going to be pretty shocked. If you keep doing it, 2,000 people won't be much different from 20,000 people. And then eventually won't be much different from 100,000 people. The numbers just won't mean anything anymore. And you're just talking with a good friend about video games. And that will honestly leak into the rest of your life. You'll become more confident in your communication. You'll become more confident in your voice, which makes you as an overall more confident person. It's actually beautiful. I feel like this is something that could be taught, to actually give confidence to younger people. But of course, it won't be because there's so many other things that have to be taught in school. But commentary is actually an excellent field that I think is not just for people who have starry-eyed dreams of being in the big stage. It's actually a useful skill to learn.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've seen even within the Discord community some of the girls who come in who are, myself included, very shy, won't really talk that much, and then you get them start casting, and suddenly they talk a lot. I'm
Yeah,
hosting a stream right now, and I was really nervous, but we're doing it. So,
yeah.
but
It's
yeah, casting definitely makes you a little bit more outgoing, and as you said, the confidence from it is great.
yeah, it is. I think that you can witness it in anyone, right? If you see someone just like sitting by themselves, and you're like, "Do you like biking?" No, I don't really like it. Do you like skateboarding? I don't really like it. Do you like basketball? Yeah, I like basketball. And then suddenly they just like start opening up, right? Um, that's what we're doing to ourselves when we get on the mic and start broadcasting. So it's pretty cool.
Um, all right, so we had one more question. You know, how do you handle being a female caster in a male-dominated industry? I feel like that's
Um,
kind of one that a lot of people here can probably relate to.
yeah, yeah. Well, the biggest problem, just kind of universally, is definitely the stigma against women voices. Despite the fact that women's voices are like the most calming, and like there's like studies on like when it can be actually preferable to others, and examples of women actually being the outside of the gender stereotype. Like Valorant's actually pretty good at that. I noticed the announcer who's like, bomb planted or whatever is a woman. And it would have been so much easier to just be like, gruff guy, get in there. But she does an excellent job, right? It sounds really cool. But that's one of those things that just is universal to everyone I've ever talked to, that they are scared that their voice won't come off well. And then the second thing is that there's a lot more of the proving ground with women, right? First, there's the do you even know the game? Name 5 characters. Like that type of shit is really annoying. So I know a lot of women who felt pressured to be an analysis caster over anything else because they wanted to prove themselves constantly. And then the second one is that they don't want to do play by play because of the stigma about their voices. Then you have any type of feedback you get, especially by people you don't know, is always going to be clouded by like the whole are you just sexist? You don't like me? And that can be difficult to actually kind of fiddle through because there's a lot of ways that people have biases that they don't even recognize. And so they can't communicate them either. So you just get false feedback basically. What other things are really annoying? Plenty of times you're going to get the really subtle shit like how you doing, how you doing, how you doing, skip the woman, how you doing, like that's happened a couple times.
Oh, jeez.
And then you do also have to kind of struggle with the idea of like, am I just the minority hire? Which honestly, I don't even know how you really determine it. I think it's a very personal thing. For me, I basically was slapped in the face that no, I was not the minority hire because I was invited to one event for 1 year and then not invited for the next. And it would have been so easy for them to just be like, oh, get the woman on here. And they didn't. So I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm the minority hire. But that's something that you're going to struggle with for a while. And then, gosh, I mean, I want to make this sound like it's a terrible industry for women because it's really not. It's really not. Um, like like you're gonna create so many. You're gonna have so many allies just from the get go, right? You know, there's already people in chat I see right now talking you up, literally as we speak. Um, but you know, it's going to be pervasive. You know, it's going to be like when you talk in chat with your womanly voice. One guy's like, "Lol, girl," and if the other guy says, "Yo, what the fuck, man? Like, don't do that." The other guy's like, "Ah, you right?" Like that happens on like a scale as you get more and more popular. When I was casting to 100 people, it was always like occasionally one guy would come in and be like, "A girl," like. When I was casting 1,000 people, there was guys like that, and then there was equal amount of people out there going like, "What the fuck are you on about? She's great. Like, what are you doing?" There's going to be more shit, I would say, in the male commentators for sure, but it's really not. It's one of the industries that has, I guess, a blessing of being new in that sense, in that there are so many women who are making sure that this isn't the same shit next year or 5 years or 10 years from now. And they've got more of a head start than industries that were built 70 years ago, right? So I think it's getting better every day. There's always going to be those problems like I was bringing up, but it's mostly personal to deal with them. You'll figure out ways to work around them or work with them, and you'll commiserate with all the people that you know are cool, and it'll be just another thing to laugh at. So
Nice. Um, all right. Well, we've gone to an hour. We have one final question. How did you find yourselves in Galorants?
hey, it's very fresh in my memory. So yeah, I we started playing Valorant because I'd been wondering if I wanted to do casting or if I wanted to just do StarCraft. So I was like, what game do I even like? And I was interested in Valorant. So I started playing it, and then I inevitably got to the stage where I communicated, and someone was like, "Girl, girl, girl." Uh, so I tweeted, are there people out there who want to play Valorant with me who won't shout in my ear that I'm a girl?" Expecting like specific people to reach out to me. When instead, one specific person was like, "You should join this group." And I was like, "Well, that just makes it so much easier." So I checked it out. I did the required, photograph and whatnot, being like, I don't know if this is gonna be worth it, but like whatever, let's do it. And then I found out that you guys have all these super sick, like super organized, awesome stuff. like, and I was like, holy shit, this is a lot of stuff. I'd love to be involved in some way here. So that's how that happened. Just one tweet, and then we're here.
The power of a tweet.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad that you came and that you joined us. Thank you for this. It looks like we've run out of questions tonight, unless anybody wants to pop in. But I really appreciate you coming on, doing this stream, letting us ask you questions and pick your brain about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'm happy to do it. So if you want me to talk more about casting, I can always do it. I can talk probably too much about casting. But if you just want to end it here, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be people who have questions in like 10 minutes that they forgot that they wanted to ask here, but we can let them ask it in the Discord chat if they really want an answer to that one. But yeah, thank you. I will end it here. I'm Wolf. This is Zombie Grub. Been awesome. Really good AMA, I think. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the stream and watching, hopping into the Discord to listen to this. We really appreciate it. Have a good night.
See ya.
Sick of all these lies. Don't care.